Here we go. Hello everyone and welcome to round number 3 of our July FFA Tournament. This time we've got FoxBlazing, KingMorgan, Rabbit, and Hydroponos competing. Looks like we got high power prices to start and not a lot of aluminum. On top of that, like, here's the aluminum. And where's the rest of it? Oh look, no adjacency. So if I were feeling like a cruel person this game, I would literally just found Robot on top of 2 of those, take the other one, and just see what I could do from there, right? There's iron here, there's iron there. You could make it work. Regardless, all of our players are going to put a little more thought into it. FoxBlazing, first to found, not taking any aluminum. I got to question that just a little bit. As, yeah, aluminum's not all that valuable, but you can see I love this KingMorgan start. This is exactly what I like to see. I don't know if I want metal mines everywhere. That's not necessarily the best option, although steel is starting off quite cheap. I do still love to see taking all that aluminum and telling everyone else, deal with it, figure it out, have fun. And it does look like KingMorgan, because he just was kind of throwing down metal mines, he was able to get to some quick steel purchases, make sure that he was in a position to upgrade easily, and of course he has the aluminum that he needs, no doubt about that. And so he very easily pushes to HQ2. He's going to get into a little bit of iron and steel production, and immediately gets frozen on all of his aluminum, but I'm not sure he's going to care, quite frankly, because that's a really, really early power surge out of Hydroponos. That is an HQ level 1 power surge, so that is $2,000 that he did not commit to upgrading and putting down buildings and all that other nonsense. So yeah, it slows Morgan down, but frankly, everybody still needs aluminum, right? So he's not gathering 18 aluminum per second because he's frozen, right? Well, he's still going to have more than enough aluminum to provide for everyone once those come online. So I don't know how much of a hindrance all of this attacking Morgan's aluminum is. Let's see. It looks like the nuke landed on the iron. I definitely like to see that. That was out of FoxBlazing. So FoxBlazing, though, gotta be careful calling attention to nuking iron when you're operating on 2 mediums, as those are quite vulnerable to nukes. On top of that, iron not all that expensive, steel not all that expensive either. Man, the black market isn't going to stop this game, apparently. Rabbit getting in on it with an EMP. Morgan's now the only player who hasn't actually used a black market item aggressively just yet. He did make a purchase for a goon squad, although I would argue that he has been the most aggressive player of the game thus far with that particular expansive found. Now, HQ3 is going to be pretty important because power's already starting to creep up in price, sitting pretty significantly. Hydroponos is going to go ahead and get into a wind turbine, but just one. He should be able to cover his costs, sell a little down to the market as a scavenger right now, but not too terribly much, and so that's not going to impact the price too much. We see Rabbit is going to be the next HQ3, and Rabbit could potentially... More nukes coming down. This one out of Morgan this time. Sheesh. Rabbit could potentially push into power here and start knocking that price down, instead going into electrolysis. I'm concerned about this because Rabbit only has the 1 claim left over, no geotherms available at this point. So that's just going to be one little wind turbine. That is not going to be enough to cover power, especially not with these electrolysis coming down. So I'm definitely curious who's going to get into that power market solidly first and manage to kind of secure themselves against all this debt. Hydroponos is going to be okay, probably, regardless. He's already got a little power down. And on top of that, didn't have a whole lot of debt in the first place from being so late to found, so late to upgrade, things like that. Now Rabbit's... Oh, I'm actually pretty concerned about this. $20,000 of debt for a claim is typically pretty reasonable. Okay, and Rabbit is moving into another wind turbine with that claim, it looks like. And so Rabbit should be okay on the double wind turbine. Very strong. He should be all right. KingMorgan also moving into plenty of power with these 2 solar panels, which means Fox is the one kind of left out in the cold all of a sudden. The expansive players need to be more concerned about power than the scavenger players due to the steel mills, right? They cost so much power. You definitely need to be concerned about them long term. Kind of weirded out by the fact that Morgan still has all 3 of these set to actually be mining aluminum right now. I mean, he can still use aluminum. He can just, what he can do is leave those as aluminum for a long time, then transition all of them at once into some other resource, like electronics maybe, or food, depending on exactly what's happening in the game, and still have a large stockpile that he can sell from when prices spike and that he can use to upgrade. So I'm not completely against it. It's just kind of weird when it's like, yeah, you've got almost 600 aluminum stored up, making 10 per second. That's nice. Let's see. And in fact, Rabbit doesn't have any aluminum coming in whatsoever, which really isn't all that surprising. Whereas Fox, you know, you can see the long, ridiculous shipping distances that our other players have. Hydroponos, not so bad, right? He took this medium. I absolutely abhor taking this medium compared to this medium, or sorry, this high. Because one single nuke on this medium renders it completely useless, and on top of that, there's no potential adjacency. If you happen to pick up something like slant drilling and that became relevant long term, it's just a bad decision all around. Because all you're getting out of it is a little reduced fuel cost. Like, minuscule reduction in fuel cost compared to taking this. So that's something I don't like, but Hydroponos overall, his found location, I actually quite enjoy given when he found it. He's got carbon there, aluminum here. It's all very usable and workable, and you can see Hydroponos is now in a position where he has no debt, has those wind turbines down, making money, which is nice, and is HQ 4. So that's pretty good for Hydroponos. But KingMorgan, I still love his spot, right? Very, very little debt for KingMorgan, only 35,000, which is a good place to be in for an expansive player. You're not making money on power, but that's kind of okay because power probably won't be all that strong for an extended period, especially with this solar flare going on. You're going to pay down debt just fine. That's absolutely fantastic. But still, you're set up in a position where you've guaranteed control of this kind of difficult to use resource this game, where there's not a lot of it available. And you're expansive, so you have a lot of tiles available. My big concern is that Black Market is actually very strong in this game. If we take a look, you've got spies, you've got EMP, Power Surge, Network Virus, Underground Nuke, and Mutinies for getting aggressive against tiles and getting aggressive against goon squads, in particular with those network viruses. Network viruses, of course, can also punish players if there is a resource shortage, which I don't really expect to see much of this game, except possibly when it comes to silicon, although plenty of players are securing silicon already. Now, if a large number of nukes come down, players don't handle their tiles well, the network virus could come into play in a serious fashion later on. But I hope that doesn't happen. It still could. I just hope it doesn't. I hope these players manage their tiles well enough and manage their upgrades well enough that they won't cause a situation like that where the network virus can be seriously punishing. Let's see. Pirates are hitting carbon right here. That's going to force kind of a strange solar condenser out of Rabbit. He's just trying to keep these pirates down. He's committing resources to knock the pirates down as ships come through, is what he's trying to do. And then canceling periodically is what he was up to. Now he's just putting a patent lab there. And that's gonna get rid of the pirates once the patent lab actually finishes. Nice little way to just clear out pirates that are positioned right there. There's no real great spot to put pirates, and it's always important to note that a building will crush a pirate gun. So if you want to remove pirates, that's how you do it. You claim the tile, you finish a building. You have to actually finish the building to completely clear out the pirates. But if you do, they'll never be coming back. And so that's why you don't really mind putting resources away from your base in this fashion, where you can see this carbon here, there's no great spot to put a pirate here, because in order to put a pirate somewhere, you have to be able to put a building there, right? So the best you could do is maybe put pirates here, and then it's a little difficult to crush, because it's 2 tiles away, but all through here, right here where he picked, it was just too easy to get rid of the pirates. Just kind of an interesting thing to look at, where the cliffs actually matter in that area. Hydroponos is our first to 5, despite being last to found. He's done quite a good job staying in this one. Worth noting that he did have simple access to silicon the whole time. KingMorgan, I don't know about this. He ended up taking this tile and dropping a solar panel on it to just deny the rest of that aluminum. But it feels like aluminum is kind of running its course for the most part. Most players are for. KingMorgan already has a ridiculously large stockpile, so much so that he's not actually gathering aluminum anymore. And aluminum might see one more good spike this game. Might. As our players try and push to 5. But I don't know if this claim was worth whatever was paid for it just to keep control of that market. 24k claim goes over to Morgan. He can, of course, sustain that given where his debt was previously because he had the solar panels up at a decent time, but he will have to be concerned about debt from here on out, already being down in a B level. Hydroponos, meanwhile, he's just making money. That's all he's really interested in right now. He's got water secured next to his base. I just love this found location. It's so good for this map. Like, he's close enough to the silicon to get it. He's close enough to carbon and aluminum to get them, and he's right next to that water, which is just great to see. Now, I am a little concerned about the fact that Hydroponos, once again, we don't see any significant tech options out of him, so he is 5, but what else does he have going for him? Not too much. You can see that we have several pleasure domes down this game. Fox and Rabbit are actually the 2 players really competing for those, but with 4 pleasure domes down already, there's not really much encouragement from Morgan and Hydroponos to get into that market at all, because the pleasure dome just becomes less and less valuable for each one that gets built. And with 2 and 2, that's not really something you'll be looking to do. Meanwhile, we've got Morgan acquiring thinking machines headed to carbon scrubbing, definitely a reasonable option for him. It is also worth pointing out that this is a hologrammed patent lab, so the other players don't know about it, just something to consider. Whereas Rabbit, he has his patent lab exposed right now, and it's not actually doing anything, only just now started on slant drilling. Slant drilling probably a good option overall, not necessarily immediately relevant, but what it will do is it greatly increases his carbon production. So this is the fantastic part about it, right? If he drops a goon on this carbon, he could guarantee pretty much for a while that he will have access to very, very, very strong carbon as we head into a late game with only 2 scavengers, which is absolutely crucial for him in a lot of ways. Having 6 carbon a second so that he can push to off-world markets and still have some carbon left over to do things like make chems, make electronics, or just sell down to the market. And Hydroponos in particular, he doesn't have a tool like slant drilling to really help out if he wanted to. Instead, he's had to take 3 separate carbon tiles, but slant drilling will allow Rabbit to make the same amount of carbon on just these 2 tiles. So that's a whole free tile out of slant drilling, effectively. And that's not even counting what else it would do for him in the water market, potentially, or how resistant it can make his water to these underground nukes that we've seen players quite willing to use this game. All that said, Hydroponos, he's sitting on a pile of cash, as is Fox. And Hydroponos is also headed toward carbon scrubbing. He's not going to get there, though. KingMorgan started that well in advance, so this is the downside of pushing for those upgrades quickly, maybe. Not getting into those tech buildings immediately. Is KingMorgan, he finishes up carbon scrubbing, he knows he wants to head right into superconductor, and as long as he has the cash to buy his own stock, if people were to get aggressive against him, KingMorgan should be in an okay spot going for all of this. Meanwhile, all Hydroponos has is a pile of money right now. That's all he has. He doesn't have investments that he's made. A pile of money in HQ5. Rabbit picked up slant drilling, headed to perpetual motion. KingMorgan headed to superconductor, having already picked up thinking machines and carbon scrubbing. 2 players with a lot of pleasure domes is a little weird, and that's in some ways arguably a waste of tiles, in particular for FoxBlazing. But 100 is still not too bad. My big concern is the sheer amount of pressure this is putting on the power market, which is what KingMorgan is trying to abuse right now with this superconductor. And Rabbit, meanwhile, he's trying to counter it from the other direction by just reducing the power cost of his pleasure domes. Would kind of like to see cold fusion picked up with that, given that he has access to good water, and he has slant drilling, so he has the opportunity to get aggressive with nukes against other players' water and kind of force that price up and create a nice market for himself. But it's not entirely necessary. It's just kind of a cool little niche play that might apply here. Rabbit playing defensively, once again, going to secure his own stock. Pleasure domes are still making decent money. I would expect to start seeing... Yeah, okay, off-world market. That's what I'm talking about. KingMorgan actually has already managed to get to one. Has it hologrammed right now. It's not launching yet, though, which is a big concern. So KingMorgan, because he made this investment, he just needs to be quite grateful that nobody's gotten aggressive against him. And he's going super, super aggressive in starting this launch while Rabbit could potentially just kill him. So that's super aggressive. Obviously, he could cancel out of the launch at any moment, recoup that money, use it to defend himself. But KingMorgan being very, very aggressive right now, making a whole lot of long-term investments and just hoping to kind of hold on until they pay off. Meanwhile, Hydroponos going in almost a complete opposite direction, trying to purchase someone very, very quickly and make them start making money for him. So trying to acquire FoxBlazing. FoxBlazing does have the other Offworld market that's down this game, so that would actually be a fantastic acquisition for Hydroponos. I don't know if he knows about that Offworld or what. Worth pointing out that Hydroponos has managed to completely miss Morgan's Offworld with these spies. That's a bit unfortunate for him. But still, if Hydroponos can get to that, which he's very close to being able to pull off, I think. Look at all this that he has sitting around. He's got this stored away for an Offworld market. If he knows that Fox has an Offworld market, though, he might be very tempted to just sell all of this down and try and make that acquisition anyway. If he notices how close he is to being able to, like, push toward that purchase. He was getting there. Just needs to start selling down and start pushing toward it. I don't know if he's going to do that, though. Probably going to be more interested in just committing to the Offworld market. FoxBlazing is just so tempting for me right now, though. Stock price is so low. It's something to think about. Unfortunately, Rabbit still has cash. Morgan is still scary. So the downside to that is you leave your stock vulnerable to being purchased by other players. So Hydroponos just slowing things down, picking up his own Offworld, is certainly not going to be a bad decision at all. Look at that aluminum price. It finally went through its movement upward and its spike. And here's the downside to KingMorgan's positioning of this Offworld market. He does not at all want to actually transition back into his own aluminum. He could maybe move this tile and start gathering in to a second. But because his Offworld market is positioned here and hologrammed, if he transitions all of these, it will reveal that there is a hologram here and kind of indicate to people, hey, I probably have a building you should pay attention to and a network virus. Just saying. And Hydroponos, first to 5, last to Offworld market, never feels good. Let's see where patents have landed. So we've got Morgan with Thinking Machines, Carbon Scrubbing, Financial Instruments, and Superconductor. He's done with the patent lab for the time being, it looks like. Hydroponos is actually our last player with a patent lab, but it's not doing anything. Teleportation is still up for grabs, as is Cold Fusion. Teleportation in particular could have a fair amount of value here. Even just reducing all these fuel costs could be a nice thing to do for Hydroponos. Although, let's see, where else was... Hydroponos is already in Water Engine, but you can see water is also quite expensive, so he's bouncing back and forth between using water and fuel. I mean, an extra 1.5-ish a second, right? That's about what he's spending on his freighters. That's a good amount of fuel and or water, so maybe something to consider with the teleportation. Regardless, what else has been taken? Superconductor, Financial Instruments, Carbon Scrubbing Thinking Machines for Morgan, Vault, Water Engine, and Nanotech, interestingly enough, over to Hydroponos. And then Rabbit has managed to secure Perpetual Motion, Virtual Reality, and Slant Drilling. Meanwhile, Fox has nothing. And Fox is still just sitting on one Offworld, trying to push to a second one just now, but it is frozen, unfortunately. And of course, these Pleasure Domes sit here continuing to be Pleasure Domes, which are actually still decent buildings. I mean, 174 is not bad.
Launch affirmative. What a payout.
At all. Especially once you pick up Perpetual Motion, once Power's price comes back down. 174 starts to look a lot more reasonable, especially as on-world prices have mostly stayed in check. The big thing is, if this water price starts coming down from optimizations, KingMorgan currently operating on 3 optimization centers, really trying to power into those. I'm not so sure about just upgrading the life support, although that is one approach. Rather than upgrading water and bringing that price down, you just upgrade the life support and make it easier to make all of that. Lots of stock purchasing going on. Rabbit got a little bit into KingMorgan's stock, but then has sold out of it. It looks like Morgan and Rabbit might be trying to focus out Hydroponos because he was the one to start getting aggressive against Fox, which is something you typically see when a player gets aggressive without securing all of their own stock. So that's no big surprise, really. Network virus. Hologrammed Offworld market belonging to KingMorgan was revealed by that, it looks like. It does look like a Goon Squad has landed on the tile, but maybe a bit behind the virus. Maybe in response to the virus being used to reveal. Or maybe just a little bit slow altogether against the scavengers. But that means that everybody knows about Morgan's Offworld. Everybody knows about one of Rabbit's Offworlds, which I believe is the one positioned at the colony. Let's see. Nobody knows about Hydroponos Offworld for sure. I don't think anybody has a spy there or anything. No. But Hydroponos is still just operating on the one Offworld. Not really looking too terribly threatening right now, except in his stock price, which is still quite strong. This is an interesting game. Okay, so one of Rabbit's looks like an optimization center, which I guess is feasible. That's not the worst thing to have an Offworld hologrammed as. Nuke onto Morgan. Where was that? On the Silicon, it looks like. Alright, knocking Silicon down to 1. Silicon's quite valuable. We did talk about that potentially happening earlier in the game. And maybe making an effort to kind of secure Silicon. No big surprise to see that late game with electronics and glass being valuable. Just kind of a standard thing that eventually happens as Silicon will spike. Steel, quite expensive, and I'm worried about Morgan making such a hefty transition into more reactors. Man, he's just committed to this life support production now, isn't he? The thing about this is, okay, he's making plenty off of it, but this is going to be what's driving up that steel price. So I wonder if Fox is going to be responding by upgrading steel. No, it doesn't look like it. So that steel price is just going to kind of stick for a while, as Fox is only making 1.5 a second. And that means that's really going to restrict transitions for our expansive players in particular. The next transition they make will either be very expensive or it will be steel, is what we're starting to look at here for our expansive players. So they need to look at getting something done quickly or starting to maybe upgrade some steel production at those optimization centers. I am a little concerned about Morgan committing to, once again, that 4th pip there of the optimization center. Very, very, very expensive. You can see he's actually already transitioning even away from some of those resources that he's upgrading. These could have all been committed maybe to upgrading power instead, and they'd be partially finished and finishing up right now. Maybe upgrade steel, maybe upgrade aluminum, maybe just upgrade chems and open up that new market instead of committing so heavily to all this life support and driving that chem price up so high in the first place. So let's see. Rabbit is looking to be in an absolutely fantastic spot once again. He's got food almost fully upgraded, but he's got chems upgraded too, and that's almost to level 3. So these chems are just sitting around making a truly massive amount of money. Right now, he's also holding on to them, which is keeping everybody else's upgrades expensive, and he's just going to hold those until he needs to sell them down to actually make a purchase, is what's quite likely. So Rabbit in the best spot right now purely because he owns all of his own stock, it looks like. But if Morgan can actually push to a purchase, excuse me, or Fox can push to a purchase, then they're starting to look a lot more healthy. Morgan in particular, if he can get to Hydroponos, then he sets himself up where he's got all of Fox's stock. He pushes his price up, makes it hard for Rabbit to finish things off, but he's still not in a good way at all. Oh, and Morgan's actually going to sell out of Hydroponos. I don't know about that. I don't know if that's how you try and win a game or what Morgan's trying to accomplish here by acquiring all this cash. What's he looking to do with this is the question. Does he want to try and purchase Rabbit instead? It's not going to work out. Rabbit is going to be the one to finish him off. So Morgan had some opportunities there to try and raise his stock price, but I don't know if there was much to do when everybody already owns half your stock. You're looking so threatening. And Rabbit, just being the one that was left alone, is going to be the one to come out on top for the time being. That said, Fox still has a lot of cash. Hydroponos doesn't have a whole lot. But Hydroponos could get a lot of that cash back by selling out of Fox. There is the option here of Hydroponos selling out of Fox, buying into Rabbit, because if Hydroponos can push to 600,000, then they can get half of Rabbit. Then Fox is going to need about 900 to 1 million, likely, to actually finish Rabbit off. And that's not actually that far away from what these players could accomplish right now. Like Fox, on the double Offworld, can still be making a significant amount of money. Hydroponos, he's only on the single Offworld, but because he has all this stock available for purchasing, he could sell that, you know, or for selling, he could sell all that down, make that buy into Rabbit, and put Fox in a position to try and finish this up. And then they could kind of go from there in their one-on-one situation wherever things would fall at that point. That said, what's likely to have happen is Fox is probably just going to try and buy Hydroponos, or Hydroponos is going to try and buy Fox, and then Rabbit's just going to come in and clean everything up because he has 4 Offworlds available from his subsidiary plus him. He's making a ridiculous amount off of subsidiary, and it's just going to keep going up and up and up and up and up and up and up as the game goes on. But who knows? Who knows what these players are going to decide? Most of the commitments and the decisions that have been made at this point, I really don't like that everybody let Rabbit make so much off of chems again this game. I did not like how the optimization centers were being used, generally speaking. I love optimization centers. They're a fantastic tool. You have to be so careful with them, though, because I'm going to look at the end of this game and see how much money Rabbit made off chems, and it's going to be probably pretty disgusting. So Fox is really trying to push to finishing off Hydroponos. Is very close to it. No, started buying into Rabbit now. Well, now the whole game plan is just becoming disjointed, which means that there effectively is no game plan. All right, Fox now selling out of Hydroponos, but it's too little too late. Rabbit's going to take down Fox, and now it's just a one-on-one between a player that has pretty much 2.5 colonies to a player that has 1.5 colonies. And we all know how we can expect that to go ahead and turn out. Hydroponos in particular, yeah, he's got 3 Offworlds for the moment. But that's not going to last forever. And if we just look at the tech, once again, Hydroponos on nothing. Rabbit 4, 3, 2, 3, 3, 3. Yeah, this one's over. It was a nice long game, though. Let's see. Yeah, plenty of water upgrades for Rabbit, but he's managing to spend enough of it. And these solar condensers are offline for the moment. That's what's happening. As soon as day breaks, these are just going to be making so much money. It's going to be disgusting. But there's no way Hydroponos can actually pull this back and win from here. I mean, Rabbit has the stock price advantage. He has a stock purchasing advantage. He doesn't have the cash advantage at the moment, but he doesn't really care because his other advantages are just so good. He's got the tech advantage. He's got all the advantages. And when you don't have an edge, there's really no way for you to win the game in a one-on-one situation, because there's just no edge for you to find. Rabbit only needs about 400,000 more. Then he'll be finishing this one on up. Well, water died. Look at how fast water dropped. I'm wondering if Hydroponos was sitting on a lot of it, or if Rabbit just made it that quickly. I wasn't really paying all that much attention, to be honest. But he's still going to be just fine. I mean, the Offworlds, if nothing else, will carry him through. I'm really worried about the fact that Morgan, like, setting up this Offworld in this fashion really locked him out from a lot of money on these aluminum tiles. Morgan was really set up in a lot of ways to win this one, but Black Market caused too many problems, and I think just some misplays on how to handle stock and the positioning of the Offworlds in particular are what cost him the game. And then that plus Rabbit being mostly ignored, that kind of leads Rabbit into position, but also just the optimization centers not being handled well. I think Rabbit did a better job on those than everybody else. Only committed to one 4 pip, and that was food, which was the Offworld launch. So it's a far more reasonable thing to go ahead and do. So that was a good, strong victory. On over to Rabbit. And I don't think anybody else even picked up a point there. I was just Rabbit all the way through. So, good work by him, picking up 5 more points for his team. And let's just go ahead and have a look. Charts and graphs. So yeah, 400 in entertainment, 200 in entertainment for these two. That's pretty good. Now, if you consider that they had 2 domes each, it's only like 200,000 per dome, 100,000 per dome. So it looks a lot more reasonable at that point, but still decent money. Dividend revenue was absolutely massive, which isn't any surprise whatsoever. Miscellaneous revenue, financial instruments not getting much done that game. And let's see. Let's head on over to Rabbit. Yeah, this guy right here. This is, I think, just a mismanagement of optimization centers. Back when everybody used optimization centers all the time, everybody kind of remembered that you upgrade chems to make sure that you don't just have one person upgrading chems and pulling in all the money off of everybody using optimization centers. That didn't happen this game. Everybody was using optimization centers. Nobody was getting upgrades in chems except for Rabbit. And so Rabbit, he just pulled in all that cash. $700,000 from chems. You can't let that happen. You got to manage that chem, the chem market, because you're consuming so many of them. So many chems. And on top of that, I think the neutral had labs on it. Yeah, the neutral also has labs on it. So that just makes the whole situation even worse. You gotta pay attention to that market. That's huge. $700,000. That's ridiculous. Frankly, it's beyond ridiculous. And you can see Morgan, yeah, he was making money from his upgrades, but not nearly as much. Because everybody else was fighting over the same resources, and then Rabbit just runs away with an effective monopoly on one. Definitely, I think mistakes here. That's the core of this game. No matter what else was happening, that's the core of the game right here. Look at this though. 29, 23, 13. I love seeing black market getting thrown everywhere.